Supreme Admiral Choi In-ho stood on the bridge of the Earth's judgment as it approached Nexus Prime, the massive space station that had once been the symbol of galactic unity. Now it hung in space like a dying star, its lights flickering as power systems failed throughout the structure. Around the station, the full might of humanity's Retribution Armada had gathered. 3,000 ships of impossible design surrounded the last stronghold of the Galactic Council. But these weren't conquerors come to claim a prize, they were judges come to deliver justice. "Admiral," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving surrender signals from 17 different council factions. They're all claiming they weren't part of the betrayal." "Of course they are," Admiral Choi replied calmly. "Fear makes everyone innocent. But we have recordings of every conversation, every vote, every decision. Justice doesn't care about last-minute regrets." The approaching human fleet was a sight that broke the spirits of those who saw it. These ships moved like living creatures, their hulls shifting and flowing as if they were made of liquid metal instead of solid matter. Energy patterns danced around them like aurora, and space itself seemed to bend in their presence. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect was their silence. No battle songs, no victory chants, no threats or demands, just the quiet approach of absolute justice. Chancellor Vextai crouched in his private chambers, listening to the reports of his collapsing empire. Every species that had been part of the council was now either in open rebellion or desperately trying to surrender to human forces. The great alliance that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years had crumbled in less than a week. "Sir," his aide whispered, "the humans are broadcasting a message to all surviving council leadership." The message came from Judge Park Nayun, who had been Earth's diplomatic representative for 15 years before the betrayal. She appeared on screens throughout the station, her expression calm but her eyes holding depths of sadness and determination. "To the leadership of the Galactic Council," she began, "you are hereby summoned to answer for your crimes against not only humanity, but every species you plan to exploit or destroy. You will face judgment not from your victims but from your own people, the billions of beings who trusted you to protect them while you planned their destruction." Vextai felt his scales crawl. This wasn't the scared, pleading human diplomat he remembered from months past. This was something else entirely. Someone who had been shaped by betrayal into an instrument of absolute justice. "You have 24 hours to surrender yourselves for trial," Judge Park continued. "Any attempt to flee will be considered an admission of guilt. Any attempt to destroy evidence will result in summary judgment. Any attempt to harm civilian populations will result in immediate retribution." The message ended with coordinates for the surrender point. Not on a human vessel where the council leadership might claim bias, but on Nexus Prime itself, in the great assembly chamber where they had planned humanity's destruction. As the deadline approached, Admiral Choi watched his sensors track the movements of surviving council leaders. Some tried to run, their ships hunted down and disabled by human pursuit fleets that moved through space like ghosts. Others attempted to destroy records of their crimes, only to discover that human intelligence had already copied everything. A few, the smartest or perhaps the most honest, simply walked to the surrender point and waited. Chancellor Vextai was not among them. The snake-like alien had barricaded himself in the station's most secure chamber, surrounded by his personal guard and what remained of his loyal staff. He had no intention of facing human justice, but justice came to him anyway. Admiral Kang Yejin materialized in his chamber without warning, her form shimmering as she stepped out of a dimension the council's scientists hadn't known existed. Her personal guard, elite soldiers who had served through a dozen wars, simply stepped aside. Not from fear, but from a strange sense of rightness, as if they knew their leader deserved what was coming. "Chancellor Vextai," Admiral Kang said politely, "you're under arrest for crimes against sentient life, conspiracy to commit genocide, and betrayal of diplomatic trust. You have no authority here." Vextai hissed, but his voice cracked with terror. "We have the authority of the betrayed," Admiral Kang replied, "and more importantly, we have the evidence of your guilt." She gestured, and the air filled with holographic records. Every secret meeting, every planning session, every decision to deceive and destroy. 50 years of careful documentation, all leading to one inescapable conclusion. The Council had been planning humanity's destruction from the moment of first contact. But the most damaging evidence came from the Council's own records. carefully preserved by their bureaucratic nature. Plans for the systematic exploitation of dozens of species. Detailed studies on which civilizations should be eliminated and which should be enslaved. Population control measures designed to prevent any species from developing enough to challenge council authority. You are going to kill them all, Admiral Kang said quietly. Every species that showed promise, every world that developed too quickly, every civilization that might someday threaten your power. Humanity was just first on the list. The trial began in the great assembly chamber of Nexus Prime. But the judges weren't human. They were representatives from every species the council had planned to betray. Zenthari, whose colonies had been marked for resource extraction. Corvani, whose research had been stolen. Tilani, whose worlds had been designated for population adjustment. Judge Park Nayun served as prosecutor, presenting evidence that made hardened aliens weep with rage and horror. The scope of the council's planned atrocities was beyond imagination. Entire species targeted for extinction, worlds marked for ecological destruction, billions of lives treated as resources to be harvested. The defendants claimed they were protecting galactic stability, Judge Park said to the assembled court. But their own records show the truth. They were protecting their power, and they were willing to destroy anyone who might challenge it. Chancellor Vextai tried to defend himself, claiming that strong leadership required difficult decisions. But when faced with the recordings of council meetings where he had laughed about stupid, trusting humans and boasted about how easy it would be to eliminate Earth's population, his words rang hollow. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all charges, but the sentence surprised everyone. The defendants will be stripped of all authority and exiled to a prison colony, Judge Park announced. They will spend the remainder of their lives in contemplation of their crimes, cared for but powerless, a living reminder of what happens to those who betray trust. You're not going to execute them? Asked one of the alien prosecutors. No, Judge Park replied firmly. Humanity learned something important during this conflict. Revenge and justice are not the same thing. These beings will live to see the galaxy rebuild itself into something better than what they tried to create. President Han Soo-jin addressed the galaxy from Earth in the days that followed. Her speech was broadcast to every world, translated into every language, carried by communication networks that humanity had repaired and improved. The Galactic Council is dissolved, she announced. In its place, we propose something new. A true alliance of equals, where no species dominates another, where trust is earned rather than demanded, and where betrayal carries consequences too severe to contemplate. The response was overwhelming. Species after species petitioned to join the new alliance, eager to be part of something genuine after centuries of deception. But humanity established strict rules. No secret meetings, no hidden agendas, complete transparency in all dealings. And most importantly, any species that joined would be protected by humanity's Retribution Armada, the sleeping giant that would ensure no one ever again faced the betrayal Earth had endured. Admiral Kim Tae-ho, older now and bearing the weight of command, stood in the decommissioning yards where humanity's most terrible weapons were being dismantled. The war was over, but the lesson would never be forgotten. Sir, asked a young officer, will we really disarm completely? Admiral Kim looked out at the ships that had terrified the galaxy, now being converted back to peaceful purposes. We'll disarm most of it, he said, but we'll never again be unprepared for betrayal. The galaxy has learned what happens when humanity is forced to choose between survival and peace. We chose survival. Next time we hope the choice won't be necessary. Years passed. The new Galactic Alliance flourished under principles of genuine cooperation and mutual respect. Species that had been enemies for millennia learned to work together. Worlds that had been marked for destruction became thriving centers of culture and learning. And in the deep archives beneath Sol, the Retribution Protocol waited in silence. Not forgotten, but sleeping, a reminder that humanity's choice to be peaceful was exactly that, a choice. The galaxy had learned to respect that choice. On a small world in the Outer Rim, a group of young aliens sat in a classroom listening to their teacher explain the history of the Council Wars. One student, a curious Zenthari with large, compound eyes, raised her hand. Teacher, why did the humans spare the Council leaders? They could have destroyed them all. Fleet Admiral Bae Sunho stood in the command center of humanity's most secret facility. located in a hollow asteroid beyond Pluto's orbit. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of every council ship, station, and strategic asset throughout the galaxy. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "all deep strike fleets are in position. We have simultaneous targeting solutions on 347 critical infrastructure points across the galaxy. Phase 2. Authorization confirmed," Admiral Bay said calmly. "Execute systematic dismantlement protocol." What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries. In a perfectly coordinated strike that spanned thousands of light years and dozens of star systems, humanity demonstrated that they hadn't just been hiding advanced ships, they had been mapping every weakness in galactic civilization. Captain Moon, Seo Young, led the assault on the Council's primary manufacturing hub in the Rigel system. Her task force of 12 ships faced a defensive fleet of over 200 alien vessels protecting the industrial complex that produced 60% of the Council's military hardware. The battle was over in 40 minutes. But Moon's fleet didn't win by destroying the enemy ships. Instead, they demonstrated technology that made the alien commanders question everything they thought they knew about space combat. Human vessels moved through dimensions the Council didn't even know existed, striking at targets from impossible angles and vanishing before return fire could reach them. "Surrender now," Moon broadcast to the facility's defenders, "and we will accept the peaceful evacuation of all personnel. Continue fighting and watch your industrial capacity disappear forever." The Xanthari fleet commander, General Vexkoth, had been fighting wars for 3 centuries. He had never surrendered to anyone, but as he watched human ships dismantle his defensive positions with surgical precision, he realized he was facing something beyond his understanding. "How?" he asked over an open channel. "How do you have this technology?" "Our intelligence said." "Your intelligence saw what we wanted it to see," Moon replied. "Did you really think we would join a galactic community and not prepare for the possibility of betrayal?" The manufacturing complex surrendered without firing another shot. Within hours, human engineering teams were studying the facility, learning how to turn the Council's own production capabilities against them. But the industrial strikes were only the beginning. Specialist Kim Young-ho, humanity's top cyber warfare expert, was leading an assault on something far more valuable: the Council's quantum communication network. From a hidden base in the Oort cloud, Kim directed an attack that was invisible but devastating. Human hackers, trained for decades in alien computing systems, penetrated the Council's most secure networks. Within hours, they had complete access to every military communication, every strategic plan, every secret order flowing through the galactic government. "Admiral Bay," Kim reported, "we now have real-time access to all Council military communications. Every order they give, every strategy they plan, every movement they make, we'll know about it before their own forces do." The psychological impact on the Council leadership was immediate and crushing. Archon Mordoon sat in his crystal chamber staring at reports that made no sense. Human forces were appearing at strategic locations before Council commanders had even decided to send ships there. It was as if the humans could read their minds. "They know everything," he said to Chancellor Vextai. "Every plan we make, every decision we consider, somehow they already know." But the worst revelation came when Admiral Yu Minjong began broadcasting the complete record of Council duplicity to every world in the galaxy. For 50 years, the Council had maintained power through carefully managed information. Now, every secret was revealed. Species across the galaxy learned that they had been categorized for eventual processing just like humanity. The Andorian Trade Federation discovered that their economic partnerships were designed to make them dependent on Council resources. The Talani Research Collective found out that their scientific discoveries had been stolen and weaponized without their knowledge. Most shocking of all, smaller species learned that the Council had been planning systematic extinction campaigns against any group that showed potential for independent development. Humanity hadn't been unique. They had simply been first on the list. The political explosion was immediate. On 1,000 worlds, alien populations rose up against Council representatives. Species that had been loyal to galactic government for centuries declared independence. The great alliance that had taken millennia to build began crumbling in a matter of days, but humanity wasn't finished. Admiral Bay activated the final phase of their campaign. Colonel Yang, initiate Cascade Protocol. Colonel Yang Mi-young smiled. For decades, her Strategic Response Division had been infiltrating not just Council computer networks, but the physical infrastructure of galactic civilization. Human agents disguised as maintenance workers, traders and researchers had been placing tiny devices throughout the galaxy's transportation and communication systems. Cascade Protocol active, Yang reported, initiating systematic infrastructure failure across all Council-controlled space. Hyperspace jump gates began failing throughout the galaxy. Not exploding, which would have killed millions of innocent civilians, but simply shutting down, stranding Council fleets far from their bases. Communication relays went offline in carefully planned sequences, isolating military commands from their forces. Power distribution networks developed mysterious glitches that cut electricity to military installations, while leaving civilian areas untouched. In the space of 6 hours, the mighty Galactic Council was reduced to scattered groups of confused officials, trying to coordinate with forces they couldn't contact. Using transportation systems that no longer functioned, Chancellor Vexatai stood in his emergency command center, watching the collapse of everything he had worked to build. Around him, his staff frantically tried to re-establish contact with Council fleets, but the communication systems were dead. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They're just one species. One world against thousands." "No, sir," said his intelligence chief quietly. "They're one species that spent 50 years pretending to be weak while preparing for exactly this scenario. We never faced humanity's military. We faced their diplomats and scientists while their real forces watched and learned." The full scope of human planning became clear as reports trickled in from across the galaxy. Every major Council stronghold was isolated. Every strategic resource was under human control or blockade. Every line of communication was compromised. And through it all, civilian populations remained unharmed, even protected by human forces. "They're not trying to conquer us," realized General Thokmar. "They're trying to dismantle us completely." That realization came too late. Admiral Bay was already implementing the final stage of humanity's response. From hidden bases throughout human space, massive fleets began emerging. Not the small strike forces that had been tearing apart Council infrastructure, but the full might of humanity's true military, 3,000 ships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering, began moving toward the Council's last strongholds. These weren't exploration vessels hastily converted for war. They were purpose-built instruments of absolute warfare, designed by minds that understood conflict in ways the aliens never had. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity revealed its true nature. The peaceful, helpful species that had shared medicine and knowledge for 50 years was gone, replaced by something that moved through space like a force of nature, unstoppable and terrifying in its efficiency. But perhaps the most frightening aspect was the restraint. Human forces could have destroyed every Council world, could have reduced alien civilization to ash and rubble. Instead, they chose to dismantle only the military and political structures that had betrayed them, leaving populations alive to witness the consequences of their leaders' actions. Chancellor Vextai received one final message from humanity before his communication systems went completely dead. It came from Admiral Bay himself, transmitted on every possible frequency so that any surviving Council forces could hear it. "To the leadership of the Galactic Council," the Admiral said, his voice calm but implacable. "You studied humanity for 50 years and concluded we were weak. You were wrong. We were not weak, we were choosing to be peaceful. That choice has now been revoked." The message paused, and when it continued, there was something in the Admiral's tone that made even hardened warriors afraid. "We are coming for you, not to conquer, but to ensure that no species ever again faces the betrayal you attempted to inflict upon us. The galaxy will be remade, and you will answer for your crimes." As the transmission ended, the last of the Council's communication networks went dark. In the silence that followed, Vextai finally understood what his people had awakened. They had tried to betray the one species in the galaxy that had genuinely chosen peace over war. Now they would face the consequences of that choice being taken away. The endgame was about to begin. Chancellor Vex Tai was reviewing reports of human surrender when reality shattered around him. The first sign was the disappearance of 3 Council patrol fleets near Jupiter. One moment they were there on the tactical display, the next moment they were gone. Not destroyed, not retreating, simply gone as if they had never existed. Report, Vex Tai hissed to his intelligence chief. Unknown, Chancellor. The fleet stopped responding simultaneously. No distress signals, no debris, nothing. It's as if they vanished. Before Vex Tai could respond, another report came in. A supply convoy near Saturn had suffered the same fate. Then a command ship near Mars. One by one, Council vessels throughout the solar system were simply disappearing. This is impossible, growled General Thokmar, the Zenthari military commander. Humans have no military capability. Our intelligence reports show only exploration. Ships and civilian transports, Admiral. Kang Yejin watched the confusion spreading through the Council fleet from the bridge of the Righteous Fury. Her ship existed in a space between dimensions, invisible to alien sensors while maintaining perfect awareness of normal space. Around her, 30 other vessels of the Shadow Fleet prepared for their next strike. Target the command cluster near Luna, she ordered. Remember, we want some survivors to spread word of what they've seen. The Righteous Fury phased into normal space directly above the Council fleet. To the aliens, it appeared as if the stars themselves had given birth to a nightmare. The ship was massive, larger than anything in the Council database, with a design that seemed to bend space around it. Captain Zexhai of the Corvani cruiser Swift Vengeance stared at his sensors in disbelief. What is that thing? His answer came in the form of weapons fire unlike anything he had ever seen. The human ship didn't just shoot at them. It seemed to reach across space and touch their shields with fingers of pure destruction. The Swift Vengeance's defensive systems, rated to stop the most powerful known weapons, crumpled like paper. Impossible, Zexhai whispered as his ship broke apart. Humans don't have this technology. But Admiral Kang wasn't finished demonstrating human capabilities. As the alien fleet tried to respond, more human ships appeared around them. Captain Shin Hoseok's vessel, the Soul's Vengeance, materialized inside the Council formation. Instead of outside where enemies belonged, the alien ships fired everything they had at the human vessel. Plasma cannons, fusion missiles, quantum disruptors, every weapon in the galactic arsenal. The human ship's shields didn't just absorb the attacks. They converted the incoming energy into additional power. With each shot the aliens fired, the Soul's Vengeance became stronger. Commander Ryu Yunji, piloting the Inchen's Wrath, demonstrated another human innovation. As Council ships fled in panic, her vessel began manufacturing combat drones from space debris. Broken alien ships became raw material for hunter-killer robots that swarmed after the survivors. Within an hour, the Council's invasion fleet around Earth was reduced to scattered survivors, broadcasting panicked reports to their commanders. The reports all said the same impossible thing. Humanity had weapons and ships that shouldn't exist. Chancellor Vex Tai listened to the reports with growing horror. How many ships did we lose? 60% of the Earth invasion fleet, Chancellor. But that's not the worst part. What do you mean? Sir, the human ships are still out there. We can't find them on sensors, but they're hunting our remaining vessels. It's like fighting ghosts. Across the galaxy, the same impossible scene was playing out. At Kepler 442b, Major Park Hyun-woo watched as human reinforcements arrived to drive off the Council occupation forces. But these weren't the same ships that had been trapped at the upgrade stations. These were vessels that moved like living things, fought with impossible weapons, and seemed to know every weakness the alien ships possessed. Captain Oh Tae-min commanded the rescue fleet. His flagship, the Busan's Hammer, didn't look like a traditional warship. It looked like a work of art, all flowing curves and strange angles. But when Council ships fired on it, the Hammer demonstrated that human aesthetics could be deadly. The ship didn't dodge incoming attacks. It danced around them, moving in ways that violated physics as the aliens understood it. When it fired back, its weapons didn't just destroy enemy vessels. They disabled them precisely, leaving the crews alive to witness human military superiority. This is Captain Oh Tae-min to all Council forces. He broadcast on open channels. You have exactly 10 minutes to begin evacuation of human civilians from this planet. Any delay will be considered an act of war. You're bluffing, replied the Zenthari ground commander. You have one ship against our entire occupation force. O's response was to demonstrate the Busan's hammer's most terrifying capability. The ship began producing smaller vessels from its own hull, like a mother giving birth to dozens of children. Within minutes, the single human ship had become a fleet of 50, all armed and ready for battle. The Zenthari evacuation began immediately, but the most shocking revelation was happening in deep space, where Council supply lines and communication networks were under systematic attack. General Park Ji-won was coordinating strikes across 17 star systems simultaneously. Each attack precisely calculated to cripple Council infrastructure while leaving civilian populations unharmed. The Council's advanced logistics network, built over centuries of galactic dominance, was collapsing in days. Human forces weren't just winning battles, they were dismantling the entire system that allowed the Council to function. "How are they doing this?" demanded Archon Morduna, his crystal body flickering with colors that indicated extreme stress. "Our intelligence said humans were barely capable of interstellar flight." "Our intelligence was wrong," Vextai replied grimly. "They've been deceiving us for 50 years. Every assessment, every evaluation, every measure of their capabilities was carefully manipulated." The reports kept coming. Human ships that could become invisible, weapons that converted enemy attacks into additional power, vessels that could manufacture new combat units in the middle of battle. Military tactics that seemed to anticipate alien responses before they were even planned. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect was the precision. Human forces were destroying military targets with surgical accuracy, while completely avoiding civilian casualties. This wasn't random destruction. It was a carefully planned campaign, designed to cripple the Council's ability to wage war, without harming innocent populations. "They're not just fighting us," realized Admiral Kexthul of the Corvani fleet. "They're demonstrating that they could have destroyed us at any time they chose." The psychological impact was devastating. Species that had dominated the galaxy for millennia were discovering that they had been living at the mercy of beings they considered primitive. Humanity's choice to be peaceful hadn't been based on weakness, it had been an act of incredible restraint. Commander Xiaowu Jin led a deep strike mission against a Council research facility where alien scientists had been developing new weapons based on stolen human technology. When her ghost fleet arrived, they found the facility heavily defended by the best the Council had to offer. The battle lasted exactly 7 minutes. When it was over, the human fleet had destroyed every military installation, while carefully preserving the research laboratories and their civilian staff. But they left behind something that chilled the surviving aliens to their cores. A complete record of every secret Council project, every hidden weapon, every classified plan. The message was clear. Humanity hadn't just been pretending to be peaceful. They had been watching, learning, and preparing for this exact scenario. "Sir," reported Seo's intelligence officer, "we've uploaded the complete Council database to the Galactic Information Network. Every species in the galaxy now knows what their leaders were planning. Across thousands of worlds, alien populations learned that their trusted Council had been planning to subjugate or destroy them, just as they had tried to do to humanity." The political shockwaves were immediate and devastating. But Chancellor Vextai's worst moment came when he received a personal message from Admiral Kang Ye-jin. The human commander appeared on his private screen, her expression calm but her eyes holding depths of cold anger that made his scales crawl. "Chancellor Vextai," she said politely, "I wanted to thank you personally for teaching humanity an important lesson. We had forgotten what we were capable of when our trust is betrayed. You've reminded us. What do you want?" Vextai hissed. "Justice," Admiral Kang replied simply. "But first we need to finish our demonstration. You see, the forces you've encountered so far are just the scouts. The main fleet is still preparing." The communication ended, leaving Vextai staring at a blank screen. Around him, his command staff worked frantically to coordinate their remaining forces. But deep down, the Chancellor knew the truth that was spreading throughout the Council's ranks. They had awakened something that should have been left sleeping, and now they were about to face the consequences of 50 years of deception. In the depths of space, Admiral Kang smiled as she watched her fleet prepare for the next phase. The hunt had only just begun. President Han Soo-jin walked through corridors that most people didn't know existed. 5 levels beneath Seoul's government complex, Past security doors that required DNA scans and quantum key verification lay humanity's deepest secret. She had been president for 6 years, but this was only the second time she had visited this place. The first time was when she took office and learned about the Retribution Protocol. She had hoped never to need it again. "Madam President," said Dr. Kwon Jong-min, rising from his desk as she entered the archive chamber. The old man had been the keeper of these secrets for 30 years. His hair was completely white and his eyes held the weight of knowledge that few humans could understand. "Doctor," Han replied, "I assume you've seen the reports from our colonies." "Yes, ma'am." "The Council's betrayal is complete. 50 years of friendship revealed as an elaborate deception." He gestured to the walls around them, lined with sealed containers and data storage units. "Perhaps it's time to remember who we really are." Han looked at the displays showing the current military situation. Council fleets surrounded Earth and every human world. Thousands of alien ships against a few dozen human vessels. Any normal species would surrender immediately. But humans weren't normal. "Show me," she said. Dr. Kwon activated an ancient holographic projector. The air filled with the image of a tall, stern-faced man in an old-style military uniform. Even though the recording was over 200 years old, the man's presence was commanding. "Admiral Lim Jae-hyuk," Dr. Kwon explained, "the creator of the Retribution Protocol." The holographic admiral began speaking in Korean. His words were translated into English subtitles that appeared in the air. "If you are viewing this recording," Admiral Lim said, "then humanity has been betrayed by those we trusted. This protocol exists for one purpose, to ensure that such betrayal comes with a price beyond imagination." Han had studied history, but most records from humanity's pre-contact period had been archived or forgotten. The peaceful Earth that joined the Galactic Council had wanted to leave its violent past behind, but that past hadn't been destroyed, only hidden. "Before we met the aliens," Dr. Kwon explained, "humanity was expanding across space through generation ships and early colonization efforts. Admiral Lim designed our military doctrine based on a simple principle. We would choose peace whenever possible. But if war was forced upon us, we would wage it with absolute effectiveness." The hologram continued. "The Retribution Protocol is built on the assumption that any enemy who betrays us will underestimate us. They will see our peaceful nature and mistake it for weakness. They will study our civilian technology and assume it represents our military capability. This mistake will be their destruction." President Han felt a chill. "What exactly did we hide from the Council?" "Everything that mattered," Dr. Kwon replied. He activated another display showing Earth's solar system. What appeared was not the peaceful collection of research stations and civilian facilities that the Council had mapped, but a fortress system of incredible complexity. "Mining operations in the asteroid belt," he said, pointing to small dots scattered through space. "Except they're not just mining. They're automated shipyards sleeping until activated. Research stations on Europa and Titan. Advanced weapons laboratories. Even this bunker extends down 20 more levels containing production facilities that have been waiting for 2 centuries. The scale was impossible to believe. While humanity had presented itself as a peaceful species interested in exploration and science, they had been quietly maintaining the most advanced military infrastructure in known space." "How many ships?" Han asked. "The public navy has 47 vessels," Dr. Kwon said. "The Retribution fleet has over 3,000. All hidden throughout the solar system and our colony worlds. But it's not just about numbers. Our technology development never stopped. We just focused it in directions the Council never suspected." Another hologram appeared showing a sleek vessel unlike anything in Earth's public fleet. It looked more like a living creature than a machine, all smooth curves and strange angles. "The dreadnought Righteous Fury," Dr. Kwon said. "Commanded by Admiral Kang Ye-jin. It can phase between dimensions, making it essentially untouchable by conventional weapons. Its main cannon can crack a planet's crust from 1,000 light-years away." Han stared at the ship. "How is this possible?" "The Council has been watching us for 50 years. They were watching what we wanted them to see. Every scanning attempt, every sensor sweep, every intelligence-gathering operation encountered carefully prepared deceptions. They think our shields are primitive because we showed them primitive shields. They think our weapons are weak because we showed them weak weapons." The full scope of the deception was staggering. For 5 decades, humanity had maintained a perfect illusion of peaceful mediocrity. while secretly developing military technology that would terrify the galaxy. There's more, Dr. Kwan said. Colonel Yang Mi-young leads the Strategic Response Division. They've been infiltrating Council networks for decades, mapping every weakness, every dependency, every critical failure point in galactic civilization. We know more about our enemies than they know about themselves. As if summoned by her name, Colonel Yang appeared on the chamber's communication screen. She was a sharp-faced woman with cold, calculating eyes. Madam President, Yang said, the hidden shipyards are activating as we speak. Our deep cover agents throughout the galaxy are in position. And ma'am, the Council's encryption is pathetic. We've been reading their private communications for years. How long until we're ready? Han asked. The first ghost fleets will be ready in 6 hours. Full deployment in 18 hours. But ma'am, I should warn you, once we activate the Retribution Protocol, there's no hiding what we really are anymore. The galaxy will know that humanity chose peace. But we never forgot how to make war. Han thought about the human colonies under attack, the families being loaded onto alien transport ships, the plague being used to blackmail her people into surrender. The choice was simple. Do it, she said. Across the solar system, ancient machinery hummed to life. Asteroid mining facilities transformed into weapons factories. Hidden shipyards began producing vessels designed for absolute warfare. Automated systems that had waited for centuries started following protocols, written by military minds that had never trusted alien friendship. Completely, the Council intercepted human communications filled with panic and desperate surrender negotiations. They saw exactly what they expected to see, a weak species begging for mercy. But deep in space, invisible to alien sensors, the first ships of humanity's true fleet began to move. Admiral Kang Ye-jin stood on the bridge of the Righteous Fury as it prepared to phase into normal space. Around her, dozens of vessels that existed in no official record prepared for humanity's first real war in 2 centuries. Admiral, her communications officer reported, we're receiving the Council's final surrender demand. Chancellor Vextai says we have 12 hours to capitulate completely or face total destruction. Reply to the Chancellor, Admiral Kang said calmly. Tell him his message is acknowledged. What should the response say, ma'am? Admiral Kang smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Tell him that humanity accepts his terms. We surrender our illusions about galactic friendship. We surrender our naive trust in alien honesty. We surrender our belief that peace can exist without the strength to enforce it. She paused, looking out at the stars where Council fleets waited in smug confidence. And then tell him that Admiral Lim Jae-hyuk sends his regards. The officer looked confused. Ma'am, Admiral Lim has been dead for 200 years. Yes, Admiral Kang replied. But his protocol is very much alive. In the depths of space, humanity's true nature began to reveal itself. The galaxy was about to learn that the most dangerous enemies were not the ones who threatened you openly, but the ones who had been underestimated for 50 years. The Retribution fleet was awake, and it was hungry for justice. Captain Yoon Ji-hee felt something was wrong the moment her ship approached the upgrade station. The massive alien structure hung in space like a metal spider, with long arms reaching out to grab visiting ships. Dozens of human vessels were already docked, their crews presumably getting the promised technology upgrades. Soul's Pride requesting docking instructions. She radioed. Welcome. Captain Yoon, came the friendly reply from a Corvani controller. Please dock at Arm 7. Our technicians are ready to begin your upgrades immediately. Ji-hai had been captain of the exploration vessel for 8 years. She had visited hundreds of alien worlds and worked with dozens of different species. The Corvani had always been polite, but today something in the controller's voice made her skin crawl. It was too friendly, like someone trying too hard to seem nice. As her ship was pulled into the docking arm, Ji-hai noticed the heavy security. Armed aliens were everywhere, far more than needed for a simple technology upgrade. When the airlock opened, a group of Zenthari soldiers waited for her crew. Captain Yoon, said their leader, a tall, insect-like being with 4 arms. Welcome to Upgrade Station Beta. Please have your crew report to the processing center. All weapons must be surrendered for safety during the upgrade process. Weapons? Ji-hai asked. We only carry standard defensive equipment. Why would that interfere with ship upgrades? New regulations, the Zenthari replied. Very important for everyone's safety. Also, we need all your navigation computers and communication systems. The upgrades require complete system replacement. Jihai's heart started beating faster. No legitimate upgrade would require surrendering weapons and navigation systems. That would leave her ship completely helpless. She thought about Admiral Kim's urgent message from 3 days ago, warning all human captains to be careful and watch for suspicious behavior. "I need to contact Earth Command first," she said. "Communication systems are already being upgraded," the Zenthari said, his tone becoming less friendly. "Please comply with regulations, Captain." Through the docking arms windows, Jihai could see other human ships. They looked dead with no lights or signs of activity. Her crew members were looking at her, waiting for orders. She had to make a choice. "My apologies," she said with a smile. "Of course we'll comply. Let me gather my crew." But instead of calling her crew to surrender, Jihai quietly activated an emergency signal. It was an old Earth military code that most people had forgotten about. Within minutes, her crew understood. They were in danger. Meanwhile, on the contested world of Kepler 442b, Major Park Hyunwoo was leading what was supposed to be a peacekeeping mission. 3 different species had been fighting over mining rights on the planet, and the Galactic Council had asked human forces to help negotiate peace. But when Hyunwoo's troops landed, they found something horrible. The human colonies on the planet were burning. Council ships were in orbit, not protecting the civilians but attacking them. Alien soldiers were rounding up human families and loading them onto transport ships. "This can't be right," said Sergeant Kim Bo-young, staring through her binoculars at the destruction. "The council wouldn't attack civilians." "Look at the ship markings," Hyunwoo said grimly. "Those are official council forces. This isn't a mistake." His communication officer ran up to him. "Major, I'm getting reports from other human worlds. The same thing is happening everywhere. Council fleets have surrounded all our major colonies." Hyunwoo felt his world crumbling. The Galactic Council, humanity's allies for 50 years, had turned into enemies overnight. But why? What had changed? The answer came in a broadcast from Chancellor Vextai himself. The snake-like alien appeared on screens across human space, his message transmitted to every human ship and colony. "People of Earth," Vextai began, his voice smooth and confident. "The Galactic Council has discovered dangerous activities in human space. Your species has been secretly developing weapons and planning aggressive actions against peaceful aliens." Hyunwoo knew this was a lie. Humans had no secret weapons. Earth's military was small and focused on defense and peacekeeping. "For the safety of the galaxy," Vextai continued, "all human worlds and ships are now under Council protection. You have 48 hours to surrender completely. Any resistance will be met with force." The broadcast showed images of massive alien fleets surrounding Earth and the human colonies. There were thousands of ships from dozens of species. The message was clear. Resistance was impossible. "However," Vextai said, his scaled face showing what might have been a smile, "the Council is merciful. We have developed a cure for a terrible disease that affects only humans. This disease is already spreading through your colonies. Only complete surrender will earn you access to the cure." Hyunwoo understood. The aliens had created a plague that would kill humans, and they were using it as blackmail. Surrender or die. On Earth, General Cho Min-ho watched the same broadcast from the Defense Command Center deep beneath Seoul. Around him, screens showed the positions of Council fleets throughout human space. The situation looked hopeless. "Sir," said his aide, "we're receiving surrender requests from colony governors across human space. They're terrified of the plague." "What plague?" Cho asked. "Unknown, sir. But several colonies are reporting sick civilians. The symptoms match what Dr. Park Sojin described as possible effects if her vaccine formula was reversed." Cho's blood ran cold. The vaccine that Sojin had proudly shared with the galaxy had been turned into a weapon against humanity. The aliens had used human generosity to create the perfect tool for human destruction. "Status of our fleets?" he asked. "Most of our ships are trapped at the upgrade stations. The ones that aren't are massively outnumbered. General, we have maybe 24 combat-ready vessels against thousands of alien ships." Cho stared at the tactical display. 50 years of peace had left humanity with exploration ships, research vessels, and a small defensive force. They had never needed a real military because they had trusted their alien friends. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "President Han is requesting an immediate meeting." "She says it's about old protocols." Cho felt a chill. He knew about the old protocols buried deep in Earth's archives. Most people thought they were just historical documents from humanity's violent past. But Cho remembered his grandfather's stories about the real reason those protocols existed. Tell her I'm on my way, he said as he walked through the underground corridors toward the president's secure bunker. Cho thought about the irony. The aliens had studied humanity for 50 years, learning about their technology, their biology, their peaceful nature. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed that humanity's choice to be peaceful meant they were weak. Back at the upgrade station, Captain Yoon Ji-hai was putting her own plan into action. While pretending to comply with the alien demands, her crew had been quietly sabotaging the station's systems. Her engineer, Lieutenant Nam Suho, had found a way to overload the power grid. "Captain," he whispered, "I can give you maybe 10 minutes of chaos. All their systems will go down." "That's enough," Ji-hee replied. "Get ready to run." She thought about all the human ships docked at stations like this one across the galaxy. Thousands of crews trapped, waiting to be processed like livestock. The aliens thought they had won already, but Ji-hai remembered something her grandmother had told her about the old days, before first contact with aliens. Humans had once been very good at war. Maybe it was time to remember how. The lights went out across the upgrade station as Suho's sabotage took effect. In the darkness, Ji-hai smiled. "Soul's Pride, this is your captain," she announced over the ship's intercom. "We're going home. And we're going to tell Earth what happened here." Emergency lighting flickered on as her ship tore away from the docking arm, leaving the crippled station behind. Around her, other human captains who had received her coded warnings were doing the same thing. The trap had sprung, but some humans had escaped. Now Earth would know the truth about their alien friends. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humanity. They were much more dangerous when they stopped being nice. Admiral Kim Tae-ho walked through the crystal halls of Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the heart of the Galactic Council. The walls sparkled with light from 1,000 different star systems, and alien beings of every shape and size moved through the corridors. Some floated on gas clouds, others walked on 6 legs, and a few were made of what looked like living rock. After 50 years, Kim still found it amazing that so many different species could work together in peace. Today was special. Dr. Park So-jin was about to present humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Kim watched her practice her speech one more time in the small room they had been given. She held up a small vial filled with clear liquid. "This vaccine can save millions of lives," So-jin said, her voice steady but excited. 17 different diseases that kill people across the galaxy. "One simple injection can stop them all," Kim nodded. This was why he loved representing Earth. Humans always tried to help others. While other species brought weapons or demanded trade deals, Earth brought medicine, food, and knowledge. It made him proud. The main council chamber was huge. Thousands of seats rose up in circles around a central speaking area. At the top sat the most important members of the council. Chancellor Vextai looked like a giant snake with arms, his scales shining green and gold. Next to him sat Archon Mordoon, whose body was made of living crystal that changed colors when he spoke. "We welcome our human friends," Chancellor Vextai said, his voice smooth and friendly. "Please, Dr. Park, show us what Earth has created." So-jin stepped forward. She explained how the vaccine worked, how it could be made cheaply, and how Earth wanted to share it freely with all species. The aliens in the audience made sounds of approval. Some clapped, others made clicking noises, and a few glowed brighter. "Remarkable," said Archon Mordoon, his crystal body turning blue with what Kim had learned meant happiness. "Once again, humanity shows its generous spirit. We accept this gift with great joy." Kim felt warm inside. This was what the Galactic Council was supposed to be about. Different species helping each other, sharing knowledge, making the galaxy better for everyone. But something felt wrong. Commander Lee Dong-wook had been quiet all day. Kim knew the head of Earth's intelligence division well enough to recognize when something was bothering him. After the presentation, while So-jin was surrounded by excited alien scientists, Kim found Lee in a corner, staring at his data pad. "What is it?" Kim asked. Lee looked around to make sure no one was listening. "I picked up some strange signals yesterday. Encrypted messages between council members. I tried to decode them, but the encryption is unlike anything I've seen." "Maybe they're just private communications," Kim suggested. Even friends need privacy sometimes. Maybe, Lee said, but he didn't sound convinced. But why would they need such heavy encryption? And why are they sending so many messages right after our vaccine presentation? Kim thought about it. The Galactic Council had always been open and honest with humanity. When Earth first made contact with aliens 50 years ago, the Council had welcomed them with open arms. They had shared technology, helped Earth build faster ships, and included humans in all major decisions. Why would they hide anything now? Over the next few days, Kim noticed small things that bothered him. When he walked into rooms, conversations would stop. Alien officials who had been friendly for years suddenly seemed distant. Security around the human quarters was increased, supposedly for their protection, but it felt more like they were being watched. Lee worked day and night trying to crack the encrypted messages. On the third night, he burst into Kim's room, his face pale but excited. "I got it," he whispered. "I broke their encryption. Kim, you need to see this. The messages were horrifying. The Council had been studying humanity for decades, but not as friends. They had been looking for weaknesses. They knew everything about human biology, human technology, and human military strength. Or rather, what they thought was human military strength. The messages talked about primitive human weapons and limited defensive capabilities. They discussed how humans were too trusting and unable to detect deception. Worst of all, they had a name for their secret plan: Protocol Harvest. "They're planning to invade," Lee said quietly. "They've been preparing for years. They think we're weak and stupid. They want to take our planets, our resources, everything." Kim felt sick. When? Soon. They're waiting for the right moment. They want all human ships to be in predictable locations first. More messages revealed the full scope of the betrayal. The vaccine that Sojin had created with such love and hope had already been studied and weaponized. The aliens had turned it into a plague that would only affect humans. They planned to threaten Earth with it unless humanity surrendered completely. Even worse, species that Earth had helped were part of the plan. The Xanthari, whose entire race had been saved when human doctors cured their genetic disease, were building ships to attack human colonies. The Corvani, who had shared art and music with Earth for 20 years, had been mapping human defensive positions. 50 years, Kim said, his voice hollow. 50 years of friendship, and it was all fake. Not all of it, Lee corrected. Some of the smaller species really do like us. But the big powers, the ones who control the Council, they've been lying from the beginning. Kim stared at the messages scrolling across Lee's screen. Everything he believed about the galaxy, about cooperation between species, about the bright future they were all building together, was crumbling. "We have to warn Earth," he said. "I already sent a coded message," Lee replied. "But Kim, I don't think we can fight this. They have thousands of ships, dozens of species working together. We have exploration vessels and some patrol boats." Kim was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "Maybe that's what they think we have." The next morning, Chancellor Vextai called for a special session. All the Council members were present, along with the human delegation. The snake-like alien stood at the center of the chamber, his scales gleaming. "My friends," he began, "we have wonderful news. The Council has voted to upgrade all human vessels with our latest technology. This will allow better cooperation and communication across the galaxy." Kim forced himself to smile and nod. Around him, other Council members made happy sounds. But now he could see the lie in their eyes, the false friendship in their voices. "All human ships must report to designated stations within 1 week," continued Vextai. "This upgrade is mandatory for the safety and security of all species." The trap was being set. Soon every human ship would be helpless, unable to defend Earth or the colonies. Then would come the demands, the threats, and finally the invasion. But as Kim looked at the aliens celebrating their coming victory, he wondered if they had made a mistake. They had studied humanity for 50 years, but had they really learned what humans were capable of when their trust was betrayed? He thought about the messages hidden in Earth's deepest archives, protocols and plans that most humans had forgotten existed. Maybe it was time to remember them. The Council session ended with cheers and congratulations. As the aliens celebrated, Kim quietly gathered his team. It was time to go home and prepare for war.